Christian says that you've got some special thing planned.
Yeah, it's like a crazy 9-day festival.
All right, hello everyone out there. My name is Eric Davis. I am thrilled to be here today for a conversation about the upcoming film Midsommar. It hits theaters on July 3rd everywhere, and with the film we have writer-director Ari Aster and the stars Florence Pugh and Jack Reynor. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. We're very excited to talk about this film. I would say, Ari, one thing I want to start out with first, nobody's seen this movie yet, but one person has seen this movie, and so I want to share one of the first reactions from this film is from a gentleman named Jordan Peele. He's a writer-director of Get Out and Us, and so I just want to read and I want to get your reaction to his reaction to the film. So Jordan Peele said, "I think you've made the most idyllic horror film of all time. You've taken Stepford Wives and shattered the attractiveness of that movie with this one. That alone is a feat. Also, there are some obvious comps out there, but this movie is just so unique. This hasn't existed yet, and anything after Midsommar is going to have to contend with it. I mean, this usurps The Wicker Man as the most iconic pagan movie to be referenced." High praise.
Jesus.
From Mr. Peele.
Yeah, my first reaction is that he's lost all credibility. Yeah, he saw a very early cut before. Yeah. He saw a very early cut before like any VFX, sound mix, color, music. So I just wonder what. I wonder what he'll think next week.
But it is high praise, and I think you, alongside Jordan Peele, I think are doing very interesting things in the genre right now and telling, you can't just say they're horror movies because I think there's so much other layers to it. Audiences will be most familiar with you due to the sort of the breakout hit of your last film, which was Hereditary. And I think that film had a lot of different things going on with it. It was a family drama. It had some sort of cultishness vibes to it, some occult stuff. So I guess the first question that a lot of audience members have, and I'll give to you, is how does this separate itself from Hereditary, Midsommar?
I mean, aesthetically, like the differences are pretty clear. One is very dark and one is very bright. If anything, I've become pretty struck by how similar they are in different ways. Both films are very much about family. Mm-hmm. Hereditary, I guess, was sort of a film about family dysfunction, mm-hmm. and this is something of a horror film about codependency.
Bad breakup. I've heard you describe this film as both an adult fairy tale and a bad breakup movie.
Yeah, that's still the only way I really feel comfortable describing the film. It's an operatic breakup movie and a dark contemporary fairy tale. That's what it is.
And which sounds amazing. The two people who are breaking up in the movie are played by you two. So why don't we start by telling us what about these roles and what about this film sort of attracted you to them? Jack, you can go.
Well, I met Ari kind of at the beginning of 2018, and we sat down to talk about the film, and I'd read the script. And I think like there was one version of my character, at least on paper, who was just kind of like an unforgivable dick, basically, and was pretty one note. But within the way it was written, I could see how actually, maybe there's a part of this guy who's just kind of looking for his autonomy a little bit, and is not, he's just reached the end of his ability to participate in the relationship. And I was really intrigued about working with Ari to find a way to, kind of like portray that in a not cut and dry way, where the kind of moral lines were a bit muddy and, where it wasn't just a kind of like singular sort of vision for the character where there was a bit of room to play with it. And so I think that, you know, the experience of shooting it with Ari, you know, he kind of like let me do whatever I wanted to do with the character and find as much of that kind of dynamic kind of energy with him as possible. So that was what I did, and it was really, really enjoyable. That was what I had hoped for before we set to work on the film, and that was definitely what I got. And you know, having seen Ari's Hereditary hadn't come out at the time, so I hadn't seen Hereditary, but I'd seen all of Ari's shorts before that, and I just thought, like, this guy is an astonishing filmmaker. Like, what an incredible vision that he has, you know. So I was really, really excited to work with him and kind of get behind the film.
Cool. Florence, what about you?
Ari and I first, so I was filming a series, Little Drummer Girl at the time, and I was in Athens, and Hereditary was just about to come out, and just as it was about to come out, there were all these whispers about Midsommar that was going to happen that summer, and my team was so excited by it and had read the script, and they were like, look, if you're going to Skype anyone right now, we know you're busy, but if you're going to Skype anyone, it's going to be Ari. And I was like, okay, all right. So like read the script, amazing. And I came back from a night shoot at like 4 a.m. and we Skyped, and we were both so exhausted. Usually at these things, whenever you Skype a director, you never really finish the conversation. You go like, okay, well, we'll see what happens in the conversation with our agents. And we were both so exhausted that we ended the call with like, look, I would love to do it. Would you have me? And he was like, yeah, I'd love to have you. I mean, great, cool. So we both went to bed having accepted this without telling our agents, which was great. And then I think the biggest thing for me that kind of, I was really, really terrified because I, as Florence, have never come close to anything in terms of my life, trauma-wise and pain-wise and grief-wise. I haven't come like anywhere near the emotional pain that Danny goes through. So I was wisely terrified about that because I don't think it's something that you could just give it a go. Like, I knew that it was very important, and that did scare me actually going into it. I had no idea how to access that. But it was the same kind of fear that really excited me into figuring out who this woman was and why she was running away from, I suppose, dealing with it head on. And I mean, it was wicked. We got out there, and we had like a week of rehearsals, and in that week we did improv as a couple, and Ari was the therapist.
Oh, that's interesting. So you played like a therapy
we did like
session
a counseling session
as a couple.
Yeah. And the first thing that, when we finished...
That was when I punched you in the face.
That was, and when he kicked me as well. No, kidding. The first thing that he said when we finished, I remember you saying, you were like, I just feel the weight of the guilt. And that's essentially, this whole relationship was that. It's so heavy and so intense, and we had a great time shooting it. But it was like... It's an intense film, and the stuff that we were doing was pretty miraculous.
Not for the faint of heart.
Well, we're going to be wary. We're not spoiling anything, just so you know. There's no spoilers here, but we do want to know, what can you tell us about this film? Obviously, Florence's character is dealing with a lot of trauma, a lot of grief in her past, and now a breakup with this guy.
Well...
Or maybe a breakup, and then they're going to a festival of some kind. So what can you say, sort of, give us a little bit of a setup for the film, for people who aren't as familiar with it?
Look at the walls. I think that's the best.
Oh, yeah.
That's the
Look
best.
at the walls.
Look at the walls.
Look at the walls.
Pay attention to the walls.
And don't pause and zoom in. Don't, be weird about it. Just look at the walls.
See what your interpretation
see
is.
what you're ready for, and you will be surprised.
Yeah, just look at the walls.
So there you go. Let's just look at the walls, everyone.
Yeah.
But tell us about just to set up and maybe where the inspiration for the film came from. And I had heard that maybe it was a little bit personal for you, that had something to do with your own experiences in your own life. And so just talk about where it came from.
Yeah, well, I wanted to, when I was writing the film, I wanted to write a breakup movie because I needed to write a breakup movie because I had just gone through a breakup.
Okay.
And I saw a way of sort of passing it through this subgenre, the folk horror genre, and kind of marrying those two things and finding a way to make this big operatic, just breakup movie, like dark comedy. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But
Dark comedy.
It is dark.
but it's
I
great.
think it is funny. I hope it's funny.
I think it's great that it's a little bit of all of these different things. It's not, you can't just say it's a horror movie, because it's not just a horror movie.
No,
It's-
definitely not.
If anything, it's just
It's such a
It's-
crescendo in all
Yeah, it
aspects.
is.
It ends like 100% on everything.
it's moving upward towards something kind of grand.
Which is sort of,
Similar to Hereditary.
yeah, I was going to say
Yeah.
that, and we actually had some fans ask us, because Hereditary is sort of a bit of a slow build, and then the floor drops out from underneath you, and you're sitting with your mouth open for the last half hour of the
I just
film.
love how in the last 10 minutes you're like, yep, that's fine. That's totally normal. Okay, cool.
I mean, should audiences expect sort of a similar adventure?
Yes and no. I don't know. I don't know. I'm so close to both films that in a way, I have no objectivity. But I do hope that viewers are enfolded in this world and that they get lost in it, and that that they maybe get lost enough in it that the ending, which is pretty prolonged, comes as a surprise, and an emotional surprise.
Is this a film, if you've just gone through a breakup, is this a film that you can go watch?
Jesus
And,
Christ, that's a loaded question. I don't know. It depends on who you are. If you like Vindication, maybe.
Who doesn't like
Who doesn't love Vindication, right?
That's a universal positive.
Jesus.
What can we say? What can we say about this festival? I think it's interesting. Is this based on a real festival that they go to? Is it part real, part fictional? What is this festival that they go to? As much as you can say about it.
I mean, it's drawn from.
Coachella.
It's like a Coachella.
Yeah, it's from
With
Coachella.
some crazy stuff.
I'm playing, I don't know.
There is a lot of music.
Stop there.
It's drawn from a lot of research, so there's a lot of actual tradition that's sort of buried in the film. There's a lot of folklore. I mean, I was pulling from a lot of different spiritual movements that have nothing to do, in many cases, with even Sweden. But yeah, I mean, there are hundreds of things kind of woven together here.
And the launching off point for you was folklore?
Yes, I would say. What was the launching off point? Yeah, sure, folklore. Yeah.
Well, because I've read a little bit of like Scandinavian folklore. It's got all kinds of creatures and monsters in it, and is that sort of stuff that helped kind of played into it at all? Or?
No, there's nothing overtly, fantastical here. Gosh.
I reckon, from the experience of making the film and being from Ireland, which is obviously an incredibly superstitious place where there's a lot of folk culture going on, one of the best things about the story of the film is that, the relationship and the kind of social norms in which we exist, the lens through which you're viewing that in this film is really distorted by this, sense of like there's a tradition and that there's like a folk element behind it. So you're kind of watching it going, well, wait, from an anthropological point of view, this is just kind of what these people maybe do, you know? So you're always kind of on edge and not knowing, well, maybe it's kind of okay. Maybe, I don't know, maybe how much can you get away with? How much of this horror are we going to buy into before we, as like the society that we live in, go, oh, fuck no, this is wrong. You know, this is like fucked up, you know? And that was what I loved about making it. That was the interesting thing for me, the folk element of it that was really interesting was that it being a, you know, kind of like there's so much mythology and there's so much of this history that we don't know much about, kind of leading us through the film, and it kind of blurs the lines, and like it kind of throws the question up of like how much of this are we willing to accept and how far are we willing to go into this before we decide that it's obscene, you know?
Yeah.
That's like, I think that's pretty masterful filmmaking, to be fair. Gotta hand it to you, man. I love you.
I think one of the things that's so fascinating too is that it's set at a time where there's just daylight all the time, and so if it's bright and everything looks like a beautiful painting, is it harder to make things scary when it's so bright and so beautiful, or does it become even scarier when it's so bright and so beautiful?
What I will say is one of the things that I really did realize later on in the day yesterday, I watched it yesterday at 10 with Ari, and I didn't really know what to say afterwards, and what I did end up realizing hours later was how many like graphic images I had seen without truly noting them as being something horrific. It was just totally beautiful, and that was down to like cinematography, palette, color, lighting, and you don't until later do you realize what was actually happening in that scene. And in that moment when you're watching, you're like, God, that's beautiful. God, I love the color of red. But you're just so kind of in it, and everything is so exciting and vibrant on all your senses, like music, sight. I mean, I wish you could eat something whilst watching it, but yeah.
You could in some theaters.
Yeah.
You could, yeah, you could definitely.
No, but like the Swedish food, can you imagine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Everybody
know if
gets an egg yolk.
Oh my god, the egg
Appetizing it
yolks.
was for you guys.
Whatever those
the
meatballs
maggot
were.
head. Oh my god.
But it's amazing to like
Crystal.
watch a film. I don't think I've ever watched a film before where there's like so much darkness, like right in the middle of like this blistering light. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing is like lit in such a way where just everything is there. There's no shadows in any corners.
Exactly.
But there's a darkness everywhere. You know, that's.
Which is wild, and I don't think we've ever really seen a film like that before. You know,
I can't think of one. Yeah.
I've heard the shoot was kind of arduous for you guys.
God, yeah.
Talk about that. What was so arduous? What was so difficult?
Well, I mean,
He didn't eat for 3 months.
Yeah.
I had to force feed him protein bars in the morning. And then I'd come back to him like an hour later and I'd be like, oh, did you eat the bar? And he'd have like a half-eaten bar and he'd be like, eat the bar.
That's true.
It is.
No, I mean, it was hard. We were chasing the sun every day, which means that you're just desperately trying to avoid continuity errors, which you can't.
Because you're not shooting this where it's sunlight 24 hours. You're shooting this.
No, we didn't shoot in Sweden. We shot in Hungary, which they are shorter days there. But I mean, if there were days where we would have to shoot 10 scenes in a day, which ultimately means that you're bumping up against continuity problems less than the days where you're shooting one scene over the course of a day, because the sun is in the morning the sun is in one place, and in the afternoon it's done a 180, and the shadows have shifted. I feel like I'm just like alerting people to what to
But the
like,
trippiness,
watch the sun
just like see how flawed this
trippiness
thing
of
is.
the storyline means that is totally okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Like the
surprised at
weirdness
how-
of it helped actually.
Yeah, I know that my cinematographer Pavel Pogorzelski and I we were panicked throughout the shooting because we didn't know how much how well the continuity would hold up to scrutiny, and we're I think both relieved that that you can just watch the movie.
well, one of the big kickers as well with that whole component of chasing the light throughout every day, because also we're shooting in a valley, so like you know, there's like shadows everywhere at a certain time. We didn't really have that many hours in the day to shoot the light the way it needed to be shot, right? But add to that the fact that you've got a portion of people on set speaking English, a portion of people on set speaking Hungarian, and a portion of people speaking Swedish. You've got 3 different primary languages going on set, and how many people spoke all 3? Maybe 1.
Yeah, very
Oh, wow.
You know, so like
few.
it was incredibly arduous to coordinate. Anything that needed to be done needed to be translated and
times.
understood by everyone in order to progress and to do anything. Which, I mean, that was pretty hardcore.
It felt pretty Sisyphean making this.
It really did, yeah.
Except
it was like Fitzcarraldo.
Yeah, it was almost like pushing up a boulder up a hill, and everybody's on the other side pushing it.
Yeah.
Was it physical? Was there a lot of physical sort of stuff that you guys had to do in this film?
No, I mean we didn't have to
I
like
had to
beat
do a
each
bit of
other up.
I've got a bit of physical stuff.
Jack had some physical therapy by the at the end. Which was,
Well, that.
you weren't there for his last
No,
day of
I
shooting.
left. I'm
We
so
can't talk
sorry.
about it.
We can't talk about
Okay.
it.
Don't worry. It's fine.
I
see the
left
movie.
when he had one of the biggest scenes. It was sad times. Everybody left actually.
Yeah. Everybody left.
Everyone left when he had one
It was
of the
just me
hardest
and
scenes
him.
to do.
Is that better though if nobody's there and if you have a really, really difficult scene, or do you want people there?
I don't know. Maybe this one it would have been nice to have a couple of my mates to have a drink afterwards, but
I think
You know?
the thing is that it was such an emotional journey for all of us. Like, take away the content. Just the heat that we were shooting in, it was really hot. We were in a field. That's
by a
tricky.
small airport as
Yeah.
well, an airstrip where planes were taking off every 5 minutes and killing our sound
Yeah.
department. So it
Yeah.
was just like, okay, stop. We got to stop for another plane.
Yeah.
There'd be like 3 World War I biplanes just
Yeah.
flying around overhead, just be like, "Fuck you," and we would have to try and shoot through that.
Yeah. So aside from the content that we were shooting, it was like it was meaty. So yeah, it's always nice to have a pal to go and have a neat drink with afterwards.
Yeah.
And I was wearing my safari gear.
Oh.
Yeah. He's terrified
Ari
of Lyme
is terrified
disease.
of bugs, so he had like the gator socks that went over, and then the boots, and then the beekeeper's hat
Yeah.
that you have, and then the beekeeper's gloves that go
He was
over
colonial looking.
He was.
He looked like he should have been on the back of an elephant.
So it's got to be hard.
very hard to take me
So it's
seriously.
got to be hard to direct a film. And
Everybody thinks you look like an asshole. Yeah.
But they would be green gators. They weren't even like a normal color. They were like bright fluorescent green.
I know.
Yeah,
No. I was not in danger of being hit by a car.
or a bug.
No, or a bug.
Or a bug. You were fine.
Not the bottom
I
half.
made it
yeah.
through.
you made it out okay.
I made it
You
through.
survived.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a great film. You should go and watch it.
Talk about Easter eggs. Are there Easter eggs in this film? What can people who are sort of nerds about that kind of stuff look for?
Look at the walls.
Look
Watch
at the
the
walls. We know
walls.
that we should watch the
Yeah.
walls in the film.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of there's a lot of peripheral information that connects to other stuff, and a lot of stuff that's a lot of prophetic detail that if you don't catch it, then you'll hopefully you'll still enjoy the film. But if you do catch it, I think it encourages maybe a more active investment or engagement, with the material.
But also,
There's
I
grounds
didn't.
for multiple viewings.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like the kind of film that you really need to watch
Yeah.
a lot
A
of
bit
times.
like Hereditary. Like, I didn't notice half of the stuff that happened in that until I watched it a second time, when I was like, oh, she's on the ceiling. It's not quite like this on this one. But I do remember one day, like, we were doing this really intense scene, and then Ari went, Flo, and like whispered me over and pointed to the monitor. And as he pointed, I was like, oh my God! All because there was something on the wall.
Watch the walls.
Watch the
That's like the
walls.
biggest tip that we're getting here.
That's
is
the
to watch
tagline
the
of the
walls.
movie.
Watch the
Midsommar.
walls.
Watch the walls.
Oh my God!
Look closer. Is that American Beauty?
I can just see theaters full of people being like, I don't know, I was watching the wall. Don't ask me what happened, I'm just looking
No
at walls.
storyline
This is
whatsoever.
my wall viewing. I've already seen the film twice, I'm just looking at the walls.
It's like,
when
I
watch
watched that interview and I was very disappointed.
What do you hope audiences take away from this film?
What do you guys hope?
Vindication. I don't know. I really feel like, you know, like for me at least, making the film, it feels like something from, you know, another time. This is not a conventional horror movie. It doesn't feel like it fits into any boxes. And my favorite thing when I go to the theater and I see a movie is when, you know, I watch something that is unique and striking and seems to be taking things in a different direction. And I really feel like that's something that this movie is doing. It's capitalizing on the prestige of what is a conventional horror that we've had over the past kind of 10 years, and I think it's taken it to a different level. So I hope people are going to walk out of the theater feeling the same way.
Which sounds refreshing. So if you're looking for something, if you're a horror fan, you're looking for something completely original and unique. And you're a big cinephile. I follow you on Instagram,
Yes,
so I
I
know
am.
it's high praise coming from you. Florence, what about you? What do you hope people take away?
I have no idea. I'm really, honestly, having watched it yesterday, I thought watching the film was going to make make things a lot clearer, and it hasn't. It's actually just complicated everything. So I don't really know what people are going to take from it, other than that it's so stimulating. Like what I was talking about earlier, everything, you are just shot with this injection of color and sound and just visual beauty, to the point where you don't even really realize that what you saw was awful. Like the scenes
It's
were
like
awful.
beautifully horrific, it sounds like.
So I don't know what people will take from it, because there are so many different kind of pathways of this storyline, but it's certainly colorful.
Last words from the writer-director. What do you hope people take away?
I just hope people are, you know, transported and moved and
That's a good word.
and confused.
Yeah, that's also a good word.
That would be great. Those.
Moving, transportation, and confusion.
And
You should
watch
set up
the
a
walls.
company.
I hope they get from A to B.
Well, and
Brilliant.
the film is Midsommar, comes out July 3rd. Ari Aster, Florence Pugh, Jack Reynor, thank you so much for being here for this conversation. Watch the walls when you watch the film, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We only do this every 90 years. I was most excited for you to come.